They called it the burning coffin on wheels. The Sherman tank, America's most mass-produced armor vehicle of World War II. At first glance, it looked powerful, unstoppable. Yet for the men trapped inside, it was less a shield and more a death sentence. German soldiers had a darker name for it, the Tommy Cooker, because when Shermans were hit, they burst into flames, cooking their crews alive. Imagine stepping in a battle knowing you had a 60% chance of never coming out. Not because of your courage, but because of the machine you were sealed inside. Inside those steel walls, every sound was amplified. The grinding of gears, the whistle of incoming shells, the desperate prayers whispered under breath. Outside, enemies waited with high-velocity guns that could tear through the Sherman like it was paper. So how bad was life for Sherman crews, really? Was it the worst job in the war? Or was there more to this cursed reputation than the myths suggest? Tonight, we open the hatch and step inside the inferno. The Sherman first rolled off American assembly lines in 1942. For U.S. commanders, it was a dream. Reliable, easy to mass produce, capable of being shipped overseas by the thousands. For the young men assigned to them, though, it was a nightmare waiting to happen. The average Sherman crew was 5 men. Boys barely out of high school, gunners, loaders, drivers, commanders. They trained quickly, learning to operate their 30-ton steel beast in weeks. Then were shipped straight into the fire of North Africa, Italy, Normandy, and beyond. At first, the Sherman gave Allied forces a sense of confidence. It was faster and more reliable than most German machines. But the reality soon became apparent. German Tiger and Panther tanks had thicker armor, bigger guns, and terrifying accuracy. Sherman crews entered battle already outgunned. Their only hope was speed, numbers, and coordination. For every Tiger Germany produced, America built 10 Shermans. But what good was quantity when one hit could end 5 young lives instantly? Whispers spread among the ranks. Crews joked darkly about their own survival odds. They taped pictures of families to the walls. They gave names to their tanks, clinging to the illusion of safety. But deep down they knew, because when the first round struck and the armor split open like a tin can, survival wasn't just unlikely. It was almost impossible. By 1944, Sherman crews were the backbone of Allied armored divisions. Yet their reputation grew darker with each passing battle. In Normandy, German anti-tank guns littered the hedgerows. A Sherman rumbling into the wrong field could be turned into a funeral pyre in seconds. Survivors described it as suffocating inside an oven. The smoke filling lungs, the flames melting flesh before escape was possible. Crews learned brutal survival tricks. They stashed extra ammo outside the tank to reduce the blast inside. They welded sandbags and metal scraps to the armor, hoping to absorb a hit. Some even smeared mud across their tanks to break up the shine. Still, the odds remained cursed. Reports showed that in some units, nearly 70% of Sherman crews never made it home. Entire teams disappeared, replaced by fresh recruits who would climb into the same tank the very next morning. The steel walls still scorched from the last explosion, and the psychological toll was relentless. Drivers admitted they could hear the screams of other crews over the battlefield. Gunners described firing blindly, knowing that every second counted before their own hatch might blow open. Commanders carried the guilt of sending friends to fiery deaths. But what came next would prove even worse. The worst moment for Sherman crews came during direct tank battles. Imagine it, a muddy French field, the roar of engines. Suddenly, a German Tiger appears through the smoke, its 88mm gun already aimed. One shot, a thunderclap, a flash of white heat. Inside, the Sherman crew feels the armor cave in. The loader is crushed instantly. Ammunition ignites. Flames swallow the cramped compartment. The others scramble for the hatch, only to find it jammed. This was not a rare story. In fact, German gunners became infamous for targeting Shermans first, knowing how quickly they would ignite. Survivors described the silence after a hit, the kind of silence that carried more weight than any explosion. Even when crews managed to escape, the trauma was permanent. Many bore lifelong burns. Others carried the scars of watching brothers in arms turn to ash beside them. It was the ultimate paradox. The Sherman was fast, reliable, and mass-produced. Yet for those inside, it was one of the most terrifying death traps of the entire war. And yet, despite it all, Sherman crews kept fighting. They adapted. They hunted in packs, overwhelming tigers with sheer numbers. They learned to call in air support, combining firepower in ways the Germans couldn't match. They pushed through North Africa, stormed the beaches of Normandy, and smashed into the heart of Europe. By the war's end, Shermans had become a symbol of Allied victory. But the cost was staggering. Tens of thousands of crewmen never returned, their bodies burned inside the very machines meant to protect them. In military textbooks, the Sherman is remembered as the workhorse, a reliable tool of victory. But for those who actually climbed inside, the story is much darker. For them, survival was not guaranteed. Every battle was a roll of the dice. Every mission a march into the unknown. So how bad was life for Sherman crews, really? The truth is it was worse than most of us can imagine. Because the real curse of the Sherman wasn't just the fire or the armor. It was the silence of thousands of young men who never came home to tell their story.